About 1945, my grandfather bought an existing restaurant on Roosevelt and Halsted. It was called Sonny's. My grandfather's name was Jack Raskin, and he needed to change the sign, but he didn't have a lot of money to spend. So instead of changing it to Jack's, it was cheaper to change it to Manny's because all he had to change was the first two letters of the sign. We still have the Formica tables and the old red chairs and vinyl tile floor. We're not going to change it. We're not famous for our decor. A lot of people call it comfort food. It's big meals. We give a nice, healthy size sandwich. We trim it right before we actually slice the meat. We slice it right in front of the customer.
Gino, what do you got for me there? How about corned beef, piled high?
We have people from every walk of life. I can't say there's a certain type of person. We give them the quality that they expect. They like to see the same faces behind the counter. Most of our employees have been here 10, 15, 20 years or more. And we have a pretty good crowd that actually is here twice a day for breakfast and lunch. It's nice. This is their home dining room, basically.
Thank you.
Okay, Bob, Manny's is a long way from your home in the northern suburbs. What brings you down there?
For me, Manny's is like home. It's a place that I've been going to since I was a young boy. My father's business was on the near south side, so when I would go to work with him on a weekend, we'd go over for lunch. The food is very reliable. I will say it's not the cheapest corned beef sandwich you'll find around, but I don't mind. I know exactly what I'm going to get. The latkes are great. The people, it's an every man, every woman kind of place. It's always what you expect it to be.
And you always have a corned beef sandwich when you go?
Corned beef and pastrami combination. Put the pastrami on top, please, Gino, so that the bottom doesn't get too soggy. Sometimes when I'm on a health kick, I'll have a salad. A julienne salad is great, but usually it's the old reliable. Yeah.
And Dan, what about for you?
Julienne salad. Manny's. I too got the pastrami and the corned beef, and I also got the macaroni and cheese, which was a change up for me. That was a real audible that I called at the last second because I always go with the latke. And they held up the latke, seeing that I had the macaroni and cheese already on the plate. And I said, no. He said, what, you can't handle the latke? You can't handle the latke. Right. And I said, no, let the next guy have it. It'd probably go to waste because there's just so much food. But you talk about it being an everyman kind of place. It's really true democracy in action, small d. Which I have to specify that because Jim Thompson, a Republican, the former governor, was in there and sitting back to back with a cab driver. And it was just a perfect snapshot of Manny's.
Now, Karen, when you went, you had a friend in from out of town and you brought her over there.
Right, and we were kind of overwhelmed by the situation because we parked the car and we were looking around, and it's pretty much the only thing on the block right now. And then we walked in and it was busy. It was just packed with people, and you said every walk of life is there, and you get a little overwhelmed when you walk in, and right there is where you choose your food. You see it right in front of you, and they knew we hadn't been there before. We were completely out of place, and they didn't care, and they kind of guided us through. We didn't know if we should split a corned beef sandwich or get our own. They didn't want you to stand around and go, well,
Right, they want to keep it moving, but excuse me, you can develop a rapport with the people behind it. I mean, Gino, as I said, I wanted to invite him to my wedding. I did, but I was...
Did you bring a slicer with it?
I would have, but I was a groom and my in-laws gave me a number.
You mentioned overwhelming, though, and how it can be. And it really, for a first-timer, and you don't know the procedure, do I pay here, do I pay later? There's nobody really there to tell you. Because if you're there at a busy time, everything's going on, just step back a little bit and watch and see where people are grabbing their trays, and you point at what you want, and you can go around. You don't have to wait through the whole line. You have to know once you get your sandwich, you can jump out of the line and go back around and grab your Jell-O or whatever you want. And they clear your trays. You got to know where the water is if you want water. So it is. I can understand for someone who hasn't been there, didn't grow up there, how it can be a little intimidating.
Oh, they'll holler. Step around for a corned beef sandwich. Believe me, they will be helpful in a very loud way. Absolutely.
Yeah, they kind of guided us along and showed us what they had and put it back down to see if we wanted it. And they told us where to go after. You don't pay here. You wait till the end, which I thought was pretty cool.
Well, let's talk about delis in general in Chicago. Do you find there's a lot of good delis, and you just happen to like Manny's a lot?
There aren't a lot of good delis, no, and that's surprising because...
Why is that? We need to figure that out.
I wish I knew the answer, because those sorts of things are right in my wheelhouse, and there aren't a lot of them. But I think I attribute it more to the fact that Chicago is a hot dog town. It's a pizza town. There's no shortage of great hot dog or pizza places. Yes, we could use some more good delis, but I found Manny's when I was a little kid, and I love it, so it works for me.
Let's get back to that humongous sandwich and the eating strategy for that. When you get a corned beef sandwich, like, what's the rule? Do you put like a certain mustard on it? Do you pick it up? Do you cut into it?
Well, the first thing that I do when I sit down with my sandwich, and I think I'm showing my OCD side here, is I take a knife and I cut all the way through it, because I think that the boss said to Gino, don't mark up the carving boards, you know, so he doesn't go all the way through the bottom. I cut through, put some mustard on it, 2 hands, good to go.
I decided to open face it and combine the mustards on it. It's really a scientific process. But you also have to like a very heavily cured pastrami. It's different than other pastrami's that you may get at like the 2nd Avenue Deli in New York or David's in San Francisco, something like that. It's a very heavy cure on the pastrami. So there's a real intense taste to it, which is why I like the combo.
Bob, this is your favorite restaurant, so why don't you give us a summary of it?
I think that they have a formula that works for them, they have food that works for them, and they stick to it.
Right.
And that's why it works for me.
And Karen, for you?
I enjoyed it. I'd go back as long as you know, it's outside of the main Chicago downtown. You have to go a little bit south there. But I would go back, definitely.
And Dan, what about for you?
For me, it's soul food. It just recalls a lot of fond memories of being around family, because that's the kind of food we would eat.
Great. Well, you can find Manny's Coffee Shop and Deli at 1141 South Jefferson, and their phone number is 312-939-2855. They are open 6 days a week for breakfast and lunch from 5 a.m., if you get up that early, to 4 p.m., and they are closed on Sundays. And the average tab is about $8 a person.